Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm excited to share with you my tips on how to keep watercolour painting simple, and we'll be creating a very nice painting in just over 30 minutes, so let's get started. Now today's subject is some boats in a quay with lots of clouds and lots of things going on, and you could paint this and spend an awful lot of time doing so. Let's take a look at the materials I'll be using today. I'll be working with Winsor Newton paints, and I'll be using Saunders-Waterford 140-pound rough paper, and I'll be using mostly smaller round brushes on this. Now, simplicity is a mindset, and here's some tips to help you with your own painting. And firstly, what's your intention? What's the mood or story you want to capture? And then next, limit your tools. Fewer tools mean clearer decisions, fewer choices. You don't need to buy the most expensive brushes either. These days synthetic brushes are much like sable brushes and have nice points and hold a lot of paint. And then let go of perfection. Simplicity leaves room for atmosphere and emotion in your work. You have to trust your instincts, because the best paintings come from bold, simple beginnings, and you have to leave out unnecessary things. Also, I'm going to be using quite a limited palette on this today and relying more on tones. Now I'm just halfway through drawing the shapes, which I'm keeping fairly simple. The boats are framed by the timbers that are on the quay nearest to us, and I'm not going to be painting 3 boats. I'm going to be painting 2 boats close up and then a couple of boats in the distance, and I'm not going to be painting the sky the same way as it seems in this image. I'm going to be keeping the distance cool and the foreground warm. Now I'm just drawing in these boats at the back, probably a little bit darker than I normally would, just so that you can actually see them in this video. And I'm putting in the features like the masts so that you can see where they would be before I start to paint. And there's a horizon line going in. And I'm going to change the what looks like a boat shed just into a cabin of a boat, which I think would look better, just to stop your eye being led out of the painting on the left hand side. Then there's these timbers coming out of the water, which again, when I paint, it's just going to be a shape. And everything here is connected. When I paint the sky, I'm going to leave a lot of plain paper, as well as in the water area as well. And you'll see that it does look quite effective. Putting in these masts on the 2 boats in the foreground. I quite like having the rigging showing when I do paintings of these kind of sailing boats. I think they do look quite nice. And with the boats as well, I've gone a bit darker so it makes it easier for you to see. The pencil I'm using is a 4B pencil. It's got quite a soft lead. I will be actually rubbing out some of the pencil marks as I go on this one. And there's the tree line, which is important to make the shapes different, like the image above. Try not to get too the same. It's very distracting, your eye gets drawn to it. I'm only going to be using a few brushes on this particular painting. And I'm not starting with the sky, I'm going to be starting with the distant trees. And then I'm using some of the ready mixed green and French ultramarine just to darken it up. And a very small nylon brush, a very inexpensive small nylon brush. That's what I was saying. You don't need to buy the most expensive brushes and equipment. I do have very nice sable brushes and some quite expensive mops, but overall I do tend to use these smaller, quite nice nylon brushes. They're synthetic. I think the manufacture of these now is, and the materials they use is far superior than it used to be. They hold a lot of water and have a very nice point, and they keep a nice point for quite a long time. Just run along this tree line at the back. I will be going over it again to darken it up. And the distant bank. Doing that in raw sienna. Brings that forward a little bit. Nice simple marks, just leaving a few gaps where the rigging goes through. You'll see what I've left the skies as we go on a bit, as I'm going to be doing it at a later stage. And straight in with the darks on this first boat, which I will be going over again once it dries. And this is neutral tint and on the right hand side I've just added some water to make it lighter, to look like where the light's coming from. Still using the same brush. And the second boat is going to be in raw umber and some water here and there. Just putting a tissue on there to lose some of the paint, to make it more interesting, and starting on the reflection straight away. There's not necessarily a particular method with this painting. I'm painting quite quick, and I'm putting some of the darker areas in straight away because I will be going over them again. But I'm really just going into areas that are not got any paint on them, and they won't run into each other when I don't want them to. And as I'm simplifying this painting, a lot of the areas are dry now, like the water area. Just making this a shape, not putting in every timber, and some reflections. Just want to give the appearance of some timbers there. And then keeping that central part for when I put the timber in. Putting a dark side on the left of these posts. As you can see, I'm able to just keep going with the painting here. I haven't dried any of it yet. And at the back here, I've just put in 2 boats. And we'll put in a distant boat in a bit later on, I think. I'll let these go first. Let these dry. And then there's this small motorboat at the back. Now we're at the 15-minute mark, and as you can see, from starting to draw it and paint, I'm well into having painted half the painting. Nice confident brush strokes, especially with things like the masts. You need to practice doing this kind of thing. Straight lines, freehand. Doesn't look so good if you try using a ruler. In fact, it looks awful. And it's all very much in keeping with the brushwork on the rest of the painting. If you do the masts freehand and with a broken mark. And now some nice warm colours, bringing this really far forward. Raw sienna, burnt sienna. Just using some of that puddle of dark colour, just to vary it a little bit. Nice and simple, a nice crisp edge. Now I have let that dry, and I'm just taking out a few pencil marks, because you'll see when I do the sky that I'm not actually going to be painting the whole sky. I've left a few pencil marks in for the rigging. And this is a soft putty rubber that I'm using. Always use the putty rubbers on watercolour paper, otherwise you'll damage the surfaces if you use those hard rubbers that the kind that you find in schools. Now I'm using a slightly larger round brush. Again, just a synthetic, non-expensive. I think these are the kind of brushes that that you use in college. And putting in the sky now. Putting some water, and then some very, very light Payne's grey. Just putting in some cloud shapes. Big clouds at the top, going to smaller clouds at the bottom, and just varying the tone a little bit. French ultramarine. Trying to make these too dark. They will dry lighter, but I think just finding the right depth of colour at the start is difficult sometimes, but it's better to go just slightly darker than lighter. I don't particularly like going over the sky areas twice, unless that's the style of that particular painting I'm doing. Most times I'll do it in one wash, using the side of the brush, just sweeping across, doing some nice flicks on the edges. Again, making it smaller as it heads down towards the horizon, the distant clouds. Now with these videos, if you look in the index section, you should be able to see chapters of the work as I go along. So if you don't want to watch the whole thing and you just want to look at parts, you'll see down in the introduction section the various parts that I've broken up for you to have a look at. Like if you wanted to go straight to the last part and then come back to this. Now this is the same colours again, ready mixed greens, which in this case is sap green and French ultramarine. Giving it another wash, keeping it nice and dark. Lots of nice tree shapes going on there. Trying to stop them looking just like jelly molds, I suppose you'd call it at the end, and just putting some flicks here and there, just using the tip of the brush just to get some indication of what would be some branches sticking out. And varying the intensity of the dark colour here and there, so it's not all the same. Going darker still on the left hand side. You can see by putting in this darker background, he made the sky recede away. Bringing in some warm colour. Again, just using raw sienna as I did with the foreground and the background as well. Really keeping this very simple raw umber with the timbers on this walkway where the boats are. Just an indication of a boat in the back there, putting the windows in, which would be the light reflections of the sky, and darkening up these timbers, making it nice and dark. Neutral tint this is. Now 24 minutes into the painting, and we're well into it now. Left out an awful lot of things. As you can see, the sky is just mostly white paper. But it really does shine with the grey and the dark green of the distant trees. Now the hull on the boat, nice and dark, really making this stand out. As you can see, I've not used too many different colours on this. And then giving the impression of a little bit of movement in the water. And the water's like the sky, where I've kept it mostly white paper. With these kind of paintings, I'm spending more time with the putting in the bits like the front of the boat and the reflections. Just taking my time with those. The rest is painted pretty rapidly, really. Making the hull of this boat that's next to it just a little bit darker. And it's the old adage of light against dark, dark against light. It brings that boat to the left forward, having a nice dark edge to it with the reflections and the hull of the boat slightly at the back of it. And then the bits and pieces on the boats, not quite sure the names of them, but this will look like some of the machinery and things on the boats, and just putting some marks on the quay side which look like people, but they're really just lines. It's up to people looking at the painting to imagine what it is themselves. Again, going over the distant shore with raw umber, just darkening that up a little bit. As you can see, quite a nice composition. Did lose a little bit of it there when I dried the paper off. Just went to the right hand side with the raw sienna on the posts. And as it's dried, I'll just take off these pencil marks on the water area. You can mould these rubbers and get quite a nice point, and you have to be very careful that the paint is dry, otherwise if it's not, it will smudge and it can make it difficult to get the marks out, especially with the darks. Just darkening up where it needs it here and there, and putting just a little bit of interest in the foreground. What could be rocks, things like that. Just darkening everything up using sepia and Payne's grey. Using the rigger brush with a fine point now to do these final pieces, the rigging on the masts and the masts. Trying very much to do them in one stroke, keeping a nice broken line. And if you use nice thick paint, when it goes across this rough paper, it will separate the line and give quite an interesting edge. Try not to use rulers and things like that. Trying to keep it slightly imperfect. It wouldn't look right if it was perfect. It's in keeping with the rest of the painting. You want it to all look like it's been painted by the same artist. Trying not to do what I said you shouldn't do, and that is fiddle about too much. And knowing when to stop. But if I think something's not quite dark enough, I will add to it at this stage. I'm really just looking around the painting, seeing what I think needs to be darkened up, as do these masts with these couple of boats there and the reflections. They really stand out quite well on this plain paper. And as you can see, it does look like water, even though it's just white paper, but very bright. And decided to put that boat in at the back there very quickly, just as I think it makes the painting look balanced. And it's quite nice to have things like the boats on the right hand side in odd numbers for some reason. Same as when you're putting in birds in the sky, to always keep the numbers odd. Just looks better. And the foreground with some raw umber and some water. So as you can see, I've used very few different colours on this particular painting. Kept it nice and simple. And I love using this rigger brush, as you can see. But it's quite important to get these last reflections in correctly. I'm trying to get the painting so it's completed and I don't have to add to anything to it afterwards. And there we go. Just revealing the edge. And then we'll be showing you the finished painting. Thanks for joining me. I hope this helps you to only paint what's necessary and paint with purpose. If you found this helpful, do give a thumbs up or share it with someone who's just starting out. If you've got any questions or want to share your own approach, pop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear how others keep things simple. Bye for now.